Hello, my name is Adam, and I'm on a mission to be the most prolific reviewer of all time. And recently, I've been on a bit of a Betty Davis kick. I found a couple of lists of her complete filmography and her best films, and I just decided to go from the beginning until the end. It's about 100 films. So I'm not sure I'll keep with it because that will be it will focus my channel very, very much, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm enjoying it, but I will just do it until I get bored and then maybe I'll come back to it later. But yeah, today I'm reviewing her third ever film, 1931's Waterloo Bridge. And the film actually has a pretty interesting story, like both in the film and outside of the film. So this is before the code, the Hayes Code, that sort of enforced morality upon Hollywood, because the movie is about an American woman who comes to London as a chorus girl, but she gets fired, and to support herself, she turns to prostitution. And they show this, they don't show it in any graphic detail, but you understand that she's clearly a prostitute. And they showed it in 1931, and in 1934 they wanted to show it again, but there was these forces in America, I think in Chicago and some other places, that they wanted to ban the film, or at least censor the film so much that you couldn't actually watch it because it's already like 121 minutes, so it's very, very short. So basically, the film was shelved, and the rights to it were bought um, by MGM, and they bought it from Universal, and they would make two sort of remakes of it. One was Waterloo Bridge in 1940, and the other one was called Gabby. And in the 1940 remake, they kind of make it like it's completely not her fault. She didn't have any choice. She thought the guy was dead, and that's why she turned to prostitution. Um, I don't know. I haven't seen that film, so I don't know if it's better or not. But I think that the film is not actually that immoral. It's just showing you that she is quite poor and she needs to support herself. She's behind on her bills. And the story of the movie, I'm going to spoil it because I think it's actually really well done. So if you want to see the movie, I would recommend go watching it. So the yeah, the plot is the following. There's this um, failed chorus girl turns to prostitution. Her name is Myra Duville, although that's a stage name. And she meets a guy named Roy Cronin, who is this British guy, but he grew up in America, so he has an American accent. And he wanted to join the war effort. So this is the First World War. So he escaped. He joins in Canada the Canadian Expedition Force, and his stepfather is actually like this big general in the British Army. And it's interesting because they have Roy and Myra have a conversation, and she's like, they have a very good chemistry, which is like immediate. You can tell that these two people, the actors really trusted each other, and the characters really, fell for each other very quickly. So anyway, they're having a conversation, and Roy explains why he joined, to see excitement, see the world, to have an adventure. And then she asks, well, was it an adventure? He's like, no, no, it wasn't. And he doesn't say anything else, but you can tell that there's a lot of pain and trauma in there. And I don't know, I think maybe the actor who plays this part was too young, but you have to remember that the First World War only ended like maybe 12 years before this movie. So you would know people who were scarred by it, especially British people and Europeans, Americans too, but they were in it like a shorter period of time. It was such a devastating conflict. And the whole movie is sort of colored by this trauma about the war. And the it's like this simple love story where this soldier meets this prostitute, and she hides the fact that she's a prostitute from him, and he's like he really wants to marry her, but she doesn't want to marry him because it's kind of a lot of women are taking advantage of soldiers in this way, so they would marry like two or three, and they would get the support for being the wife of a soldier staying at home. She doesn't want to do that. And so they have kind of like this romance because he's on leave, and he invites her to a drive in the countryside, and he actually takes her to see his family. And they're very, very nice about it, but the mother says that basically she's like one of these people who the movie presents her as being like 100% nice and upright and not everything, and everything she's saying is completely reasonable. But basically her point of view is that it's too quick and they can't marry because they just met each other. And then she eventually learns, because Myra tells her, that she is a prostitute, and that's like another reason not to get married. So they're gonna go on this like weekend adventure that Myra's been tricked into. So Myra escapes, she goes back to London, and Roy follows her because she's been called back to active service, and he really wants to marry her. And she's like, no, no, I can't marry you. He has this great scene with the landlady, because her landlady is like very British and like very obsessed with money, and she tells him that she's a prostitute. And there's this lovely like silent acting, because this is the age of silent acting. It's like transitioning from sound in movies to silent acting. And so there is a close up of the guy's face, the main character's face, as she's telling him, and he's just getting like angrier and angrier, and he finally like, just shut your mouth, you wicked woman, or something like that. And he, kind of pushes her away and leaves. And then through a lot of cajoling, he so basically they're having this argument about her marrying him. She doesn't want to. And then they're on Waterloo Bridge, and there's like a transport coming, and he has to get on this truck to go back to the front, and if he doesn't, he'll be a deserter. So he's like, I will go if you promise you're gonna marry me. And finally, all the other soldiers and the officers like, marry him, say you'll marry him, he's gotta leave. So she does marry him, and she does say that she's going to marry him, and then he leaves. And this is during the time when there were air raids over London in the First World War. And I think people don't really remember that, but there were like Zeppelins flying over London and bombing London during the First World War. So they were doing that, and this is during an air raid that he leaves, and a bomb falls on the bridge, and the Wikipedia says that she dies, but I think it's ambiguous as to whether she dies or not. She has this mink or fox fur, I guess, that she got as a gift when she was a chorus girl, and she's kind of kept it as a memory of her happier times. So the last scene is basically that fur on the bridge, and just a bunch of people gathered around her. So you don't actually know what happens. Maybe she got injured, maybe she died, whatever. And I think that movie that ending for that movie is kind of brilliant because you you don't know, like, she could have died and then he comes back. Like, think about the endings to this movie. She could have died, he comes back, and then he's like, oh, sad that she's not there anymore. But that's like the way of life, basically. The other ending would be she lives, he dies, and then she has to live with the fact that there was this one guy who was genuinely nice to her and like really loved her, and she loved him, and they had this chemistry, and then he's gone. So that would be the other ending. And the other third ending, which seems like a happy ending, but probably it isn't, is like they both live and then they have to deal with his family who are not going to accept the fact that their daughter in law is a former prostitute. Probably not going to happen. Um, yeah, so I don't know if I told you who is the star. It's not Betty Davis. The stars are uh, Ben. No, no, that's the writer. The is May Clark and Kent Douglas, and Betty Davis is like ninth on the listing of the people in the movie. And when she comes on, you can tell it's Betty Davis, but and she has charisma, but she has like four lines. And she basically was saying, like, somebody asked her how she felt to be listed so low in this movie later. And she said something like, well, it's true, I had four lines, but every time Myra was saying something, I said, I thought that I could have done it better, or I thought I could have done it, something like that. So if you're watching this movie for Betty Davis, you're probably going to be disappointed because there's not a lot of Betty Davis in it. But I think it's still a nice movie. It's the perfect time for a movie. The movie kind of progresses quite naturally, and I think some people might say, well, the romance is a bit forced, but you have to remember, like, he had like a short period of time, and the possibility that he would die in France was really, really high. So that made him a lot more motivated. And I think it is really good because the actors are charismatic, but also you see this transition between silent film acting and acting where you have to rely more on your voice. So yeah, I think it's definitely worth a watch if you have the chance to do so. All right. Yeah, what did you think about this movie if you've seen it, the 1931 version of Waterloo Bridge? Put your thoughts in the comments. Like and subscribe if you like my reviews. I'm trying to get to 150 subscribers by the end of January. I have a lot more reviews than 150. I think I have like 500 at this point. I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to get to 150 subscribers by the end of January. So it's completely doable. And thank you to everybody who subscribed. And if you're really interested, please check out my Patreon. Thank you, everybody. Bye.